The first race of the 2026 Formula One season just revealed something that could put Ferrari in serious trouble. And it wasn't Red Bull, it wasn't McLaren, it was Mercedes. Because during the Australian Grand Prix weekend, Ferrari actually looked like the fastest team at first. Charles Leclerc finished practice in first place. Lewis Hamilton finished second. A Ferrari won too. Everything suggested the new SF26 might finally be a championship-level car. But then qualifying started, and suddenly Mercedes was almost 8/10ths faster. 8/10ths. In modern Formula One, that is a massive gap. And after the race, both Lewis Hamilton and Fred Vasseur began talking about one specific detail that shocked the Ferrari garage: the Mercedes engine. According to Charles Leclerc, Mercedes may have been hiding their real power during practice, saving their full performance for the moment that mattered most: qualifying. If that is true, it changes everything, because it means Ferrari may have spent the entire weekend analyzing the wrong data. And if Mercedes truly has that kind of engine advantage already, then the fight for the 2026 championship could become much harder than anyone expected. So what exactly did Hamilton and Vasseur discover after the race? How strong is the new Ferrari SF26 really? And did Mercedes just reveal the biggest technical advantage of a new Formula One era? The Australian Grand Prix weekend actually began with a completely different story for Ferrari. Before Mercedes shocked everyone in qualifying, before the race confirmed their dominance, there was a moment when Ferrari looked like the team to beat. Friday practice, the very first real running of the 2026 season. And immediately, the SF26 sent a strong signal to the rest of the grid. Charles Leclerc finished the first session in first place. Lewis Hamilton finished second. A Ferrari won too on the timing screens. For a few hours, the paddock started asking the same question: did Ferrari just build the best car of a new era? Because the SF26 looked extremely comfortable at Albert Park. Through the high-speed direction changes, through the medium-speed corners, the car looked planted, stable, predictable. And when a Formula One car behaves like that from the very first session of the season, engineers immediately take notice. The reason is simple: balance. When the aerodynamic platform is working properly, drivers can push earlier, brake later, and trust the car to respond exactly how they expect. And that is exactly how the Ferrari looked on Friday. The technical changes made over the winter were clearly working. Ferrari introduced a heavily revised floor, an optimized diffuser, and a much more refined aerodynamic package designed to generate stable downforce across different corner speeds. But perhaps the most interesting development was under the engine cover. Ferrari's new 067/6 power unit had been redesigned to improve response and traction. The turbocharger was smaller, the lag was reduced, and the energy deployment system appeared much more efficient on corner exit. That combination created a car that looked extremely sharp through Albert Park's flowing sections. For Lewis Hamilton, this was particularly important, because adapting to Ferrari after spending so many years with Mercedes is not a simple transition. Different engine characteristics, different hybrid deployment strategies, different aerodynamic balance. All of those elements require time to understand. But during those first practice laps, Hamilton looked surprisingly comfortable. His driving was smooth, measured, very precise, almost like a driver rediscovering confidence after a difficult season. And inside the Ferrari garage, there was quiet optimism. Not celebration, not overconfidence, but a sense that the foundation of the car was strong. Both drivers said similar things after practice. The SF26 had potential, real potential, but there was also a warning hidden inside their comments. The grid was extremely tight, and small differences in performance could change the competitive order very quickly. At that moment, Ferrari believed they were in the fight, but what they did not know yet was that another team had not shown its true performance. Not yet, because while Ferrari appeared strong during practice, Mercedes was preparing something much more dramatic for Saturday. And when qualifying began, the entire competitive picture of the weekend changed in a way that even surprised Ferrari engineers. Saturday in Melbourne is when Formula One reveals the truth. Practice sessions are about experiments, but qualifying is where teams finally show their real performance. And the moment Q1 began, Ferrari started to realize something strange was happening. The SF26 still looked strong. The balance was good. The drivers were confident. But the lap times for Mercedes suddenly looked very different. Much faster, much more aggressive. And when the final qualifying runs arrived, the entire paddock saw it. George Russell delivered an incredible lap, perfect through the fast sections, extremely strong on corner exit, and when the time appeared on the screen, the reaction inside several garages was immediate. The gap was enormous, almost 8/10 faster than Ferrari. In modern Formula One, 8/10 is not just a small advantage, it is domination. Charles Leclerc finished qualifying in 4th position. Lewis Hamilton ended up 7th on the grid. Good positions, but nowhere near the pace needed to challenge for pole. And what Leclerc said after qualifying immediately raised eyebrows across the paddock. He admitted Ferrari was nowhere near Mercedes, not even close. But then, he suggested something much more interesting. Leclerc believed Mercedes had not shown their real engine performance during practice. In other words, the Mercedes everyone analyzed on Friday was not the real car. It was a limited version, a car running with reduced power. And only in qualifying did they finally unleash the full performance of the engine. If that interpretation is correct, it explains something that confused many engineers during the weekend. Because when teams study their rivals, they do not just look at lap times. They analyze acceleration traces, energy deployment patterns, top speed figures. Every small detail reveals clues about engine power and efficiency. But if a team hides that performance during practice, those calculations become misleading. And that is exactly what Ferrari might have experienced in Australia. For most of Friday, Ferrari believed they were fighting Mercedes on equal terms. But once qualifying began, the real performance gap suddenly appeared. And it was much bigger than expected. Still, qualifying only tells part of the story in Formula One, because race pace can reveal a completely different picture. And when Sunday finally arrived at Albert Park, the behavior of the SF26 began to show something that gave Ferrari a little bit of hope. Because while Mercedes looked unstoppable over one lap, the Ferrari looked extremely strong over a full race distance. Sunday in Melbourne finally revealed the real character of the Ferrari SF26. Because once the lights went out, the race began telling a different story than qualifying. Mercedes was still extremely strong at the front. George Russell immediately controlled the pace. Antonelli stayed close behind. The two silver cars looked calm, stable, almost effortless as they managed the race from the front. But behind them, Ferrari began to show something very important: consistency. Charles Leclerc started from 4th position, right behind the leading group. And from the first laps, his objective was clear: stay connected, protect the tires, wait for the race to unfold. Albert Park can punish cars that are too aggressive with the rear tires. If the degradation starts early, the pace disappears quickly. But the Ferrari behaved very differently. The SF26 looked smooth through the corners, stable on entry, very controlled on exit. And lap after lap, Leclerc managed to stay inside the leading group. Not close enough to attack the Mercedes, but close enough to remain firmly inside the fight for the podium. That alone was already a positive signal for Ferrari, because one of the biggest strengths of the SF26 appeared during the long runs: tire management. The car preserved the rear tires much better than many expected, and that allowed Ferrari to maintain consistent lap times across the entire stint. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton's race followed a different path. Starting from 7th position meant he had a much harder job. Traffic everywhere, dirty air in every braking zone, and limited opportunities to overtake. But Hamilton approached the race with the patience of a 7-time world champion. He did not rush. He did not force risky moves. Instead, he waited for the right opportunities, then executed clean overtakes with precision. Little by little, he climbed through the field. Every position gained through careful management of tires and energy deployment. And what impressed many observers was how comfortable Hamilton looked inside the Ferrari. Smooth steering, measured braking, very calm body language on the onboard cameras. For a driver adapting to a completely different car philosophy, that level of confidence was a very positive sign. Because Ferrari needed Hamilton to rediscover that rhythm after the difficulties of the previous season. By the middle phase of the race, the competitive picture became clearer. Mercedes still had the fastest package overall. Their pace at the front was simply too strong. But Ferrari had firmly established itself as the second most competitive team on track. Ahead of Red Bull, ahead of McLaren, Leclerc eventually secured a podium finish. A clean, disciplined race that maximized everything the SF26 could deliver. Hamilton finished inside the leading group as well. Not close enough to attack the podium, but clearly competitive, and much stronger than many expected before the season began. On paper, that sounds like a successful start to the season. strong pace, a podium, 2 cars scoring solid points. But inside the Ferrari garage, the mood after the race was more complicated, because the numbers from the race told a story that worried the engineers. Even with a strong car, even with 2 world-class drivers, Ferrari still could not touch the Mercedes. The gap was real. And when the teams started analyzing the telemetry data after the race, one specific area began to stand out: the power unit performance, which explains why, after the race, both Lewis Hamilton and Fred Vasseur began talking openly about something that Ferrari now suspects. The Mercedes engine might be the real weapon of the 2026 season.